Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. Today on the Daily Review, we discuss another fine Indian cinema film starring Irfan Khan, Nawazuddin Siddiqui, and Nimrat Kaur. It's your host, me, Professor Joe LaRocca, in a film directed by Ritesh Batra. See, I'm getting better at these names, guys. You gotta stay with me because I'm an actual human being. Because I started watching I've been ever since I got past 1,000 subs. It's been recommending me a lot of people who are kind of in the 1,000 sub region, and they're doing shows like mine. So I watch some of them, and I hate them more than anything. And there are people who are doing way better than me. The two things I hate is usually they edit them so it's much cleaner. What's fun about that? Just a clean little thing that makes it so much more of a product when it should be a conversation, in my opinion. That's what I like about it. Kind of the point is that you get to know me as a person, so then you can take my reviews, because a review is actually subjective. But if you know the person, you know what they like, then it informs. That's what Roger Ebert did. He was a famous American show. The same thing with Paulina Kael, and all the famous ones are doing that. I am one of the famous ones. I'm Paulina Kael. I'm the new Paulina Kael. I'm just kidding. I'm like Dylan. Anyway, so we're gonna get to this in a second, but what people tend to do, I feel like, is they just say a brief thing about what the movie's about, and then they usually just kind of praise it, no matter what it is. It's usually just like, oh, I thought it was really good. And if something's not, they're never harsh on anything because I don't think they want to offend anybody. And they never, ultimately, they never say, anything about the movie that's unique. You never get a unique take, and you never they never make deeper connections with other films or with themes or with cultural styles. It's the deepest they go is the trivia on IMDb, which, if you don't know, it's the Internet Movie Database in the United States. We use it to look up movies and stuff. It's very helpful. You might want to check it out. I'm sure they have an Indian equivalent or in various languages, maybe even the same site in different languages. I don't know how that works. Anyway, they never talk about what they learned from the movie. They just say, oh, Tom Cruise, really amazing cinematography, revolutionary, and he's back in all of his action style. And it's that phony patter, but because they edit it, they can do it real well. And then it's just this, and they're always smiling and happy. I think it's all bullshit. So anyway, here comes a real review from a motherfucker who's made some movies and some, I teach people this stuff every day, and I don't have a bunch of stupid Funko Pop dolls behind me. I'm a real man with real ideas. Anyway, I will stop swearing as much, though. Everybody, including my father, is like, dude, don't swear so much. It's just nuts on your educational show. Anyway, let's jump right into it. I watched The Lunchbox, and you crazy people out there who reviewed it are 100% right. Literally the perfect movie to watch after Gangs of Wasseypur, because Nawazuddin Siddiqui is playing a completely different role, a 180 role, just a sweet, happy guy who's just trying to make it in the world, and he's young, and he does, and he's not stoned out of his mind, just being shooting people and stuff. This is a very upbeat movie. I love it. Let me just get right to it. It's understated. It's beautiful. It has just a little drop of magic in it. And it's simple. I love simple films. Oh, narratively simple, because it's so much more badass. Because you can write a song on a piano that's and it's a black page of notes. And that's impressive, if it sounds cool and it's hard to play and everything. But then you hear something just a simple melody that has lasted decades and decades and hundreds of years, and you go, oh, fuck. There's some truth in simplicity, much like my show. Anyway, it's a movie about a very cautious mother who is the wife of a husband who everything's gone stale. And she's got her neighbor downstairs, auntie, who she talks to, and they communicate through a basket of sending things back and forth, yelling to each other, and then putting here are your carrots, put in the basket. Love that little detail. Made it feel, it just feels so like there's a community, and she's kind of making really, really good meals for her husband to eat at lunch at work to help like reignite the marriage, to add quite literally some spice into their life. And this notoriously efficient lunchbox delivery system, which we watched during the kind of the opening credits of it, going from person to bike to train to wheelbarrow to a cart to hand delivery to all this stuff, is so notoriously efficient that apparently Harvard came and studied it. And so somehow in this 100% error free, this is what's kind of magical about it. The lunchbox inadvertently goes to a different person. It does not go to what's that guy's name? I think it's Rajiv is the actual husband, and Sajan Fernandez is Irfan Khan, who is like a widower, and it's like about Schmidt. He's kind of on his way out of work, and and Hazuddin has come in to is going to take over his job, and he's got to teach him the ropes, and he's just depressed and hates everything. And then one day he gets this meal because of this one little mistake, and it like changes his life to have a meal that has just had so much care put into it, because he hasn't had that in so long. Because there's nothing like the hug of a good meal. You know what I mean? It's a really personal thing, and it can be restorative. And it's really movies about the power of mothers and food is what I really thought. But so we got this guy who's on his way out. He's super depressed, and he slowly starts sending messages back and forth with this lady who's having trouble with her marriage, but who's much younger. And I won't, I already feel like I've spoiled a little bit in just telling you that, because the first reveal is, you think based on his reaction that Irfan Khan got a bad meal, because he's not like, wow, this is the greatest meal I've had. And you can't really tell who's related to who at first for the first like 10 minutes. And it's intentionally done. And then you realize they pull this switch thing on you where you go, oh, you thought that he was the bad husband, but he's the widower. Oh, so smart. It was such a small little narrative device to head fake you there. I thought it was so brilliant. And it was almost like a casting thing, because we haven't seen Rajiv yet. So you're like, well, it has to be him because of the way they're setting up. They played off the simplicity so well. It blew my mind. I was just immediately like, all right. And yes, I did order out Indian food yesterday. I have a place right beside me called Dosa and Curry, and I got a relatively spicy chicken korma with some garlic naan. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's relatively Americanized, but I have to say that I do live in a part of Somerville that's kind of known as Little India, Little Nepal. We have like a couple Nepalese restaurants, a couple Indian restaurants, and we have a big market called Indian Market that is, it's not just a convenience store. It's like all Indian goods, like a big supermarket. And so I think that the Indian food I'm having, obviously I've not been there, I think it's relatively authentic, because I always see like huge Indian families eating there on the weekends and stuff. Like I feel like it's a legit place. And so I did have that. You would have to watch this movie, you have to have food. You'd have to have, and probably Indian food to really bring it home, because they make it seem so good. It's just beautiful. Anyway, this movie, the big thing that I noticed is that this is clearly made for a world market, not just an Indian market, based on how the language works. Oh, the version I watched had the worst subtitles, just the worst bad translation. I can see how people get so frustrated by that, but I was able to be like, that's not what the line was, because that's not a good line, and this movie's got better lines than that. You know what I mean? But it follows more of a 3-act structure. It's an hour and 44 minutes, and there isn't music in the same way as in some of the other Indian cinema films. So, and I noticed that one of the producers is a German person, so I think that they were like going more for the worldwide art film market, which I think is smart. It feels like the director, he had a very, very, very clean English accent. So I don't know what his deal is, or maybe if he has stronger connections to England and Europe, because it felt not in a way like they were changing their style of cinema, but it felt more like a European film by comparison. You know what I mean? I'm always afraid I'm going to say something that like offends somebody, but I also like, if you get offended by me, come on, don't get offended by me. We're just having a conversation here. I'm just trying to figure it out, guys. I'm a human being. Um, anyway, let's just talk about a few scenes that I liked so much. There's a moment where she makes this food super, super spicy to like kind of make sure the husband will say something, and because that's part of the like, oh, maybe that'll turn him on or whatever. And his reaction, because Irfan Khan's so like a nerd to everything, and he's just such a broken man that he eats it and he just goes, drinks a little water, just keeps going. You're like, this is great. And they start this like back and forth that's like, I don't know, You Got Mail, but a way better version of it. What else? There's this moment where he's going to meet the person in the climax, and he goes, and someone on the bus is like, oh, have my seat. Or on the train, I mean. And from that, he loses, well, that and something else, but about the smell of his bathroom. But he just completely loses confidence before the date, because he's like, oh, that guy asked me to sit down because I'm old. And he doesn't have to say any of this stuff. He does confess to her that, but that's an important character reveal. Like we don't need that as the audience. We totally get it. And Nimrat Kaur, is it Kaur? Kaur, maybe it's Kaur. She plays Ela. God, she's so beautiful. She's amazing. She's like just like a natural beauty. And she plays it real well. She's got some like this heartbreaking scene where she's going through the laundry, and she just smells a shirt, and she doesn't even need to say anything, and then she smells another. She's like in a different spot, and you go, husband's having an affair. Like instantly, that's visual storytelling, and it makes you feel smart when you watch it, and it keeps you engaged in the movie, as opposed to her going, "I'll get that bastard. I smell another lady on your clothes." You know what I mean? You get to piece it together. It makes the whole movie like understated and subtle. It's not a big punch in the face. Very relaxing. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it. There's one last thing I wanted to say about cultural visual library, something we talk about in class. And I heard, I don't know, I think Brian De Palma or Martin Scorsese talking about it. And basically, you want your visual encyclopedia to be strong. You always want to be watching stuff if you're going to be a filmmaker or a video maker or whatever you want to call it. You're going to tell stories visually. You want to watch tons and tons and tons of stuff and look at tons of paintings and listen to tons of music and stuff from all different cultures, because it just builds up this like encyclopedic knowledge of visual cues. Somebody like Tarantino has an amazing one of those, and he can reference all this stuff. And so what's always interesting, and I use this in a discussion when talking about the nature of sound editing, how it's kind of subconscious, how it can work on multiple levels. Like if I tell you the word drum, depending on where you are in the world, you might imagine a different drum. Maybe if you're from the United States and I said drum, you might think of like a snare drum. Maybe if you were from some parts of Africa, you would think of like a woodcut drum, or maybe you'd think of a snare drum or a big rock kit or whatever. I'm not saying it has to be these things, or if you were from like a part of India, you might think of like a tabla or more of some classical Indian instruments. And that's the same thing with sound, is that you can put in sounds that people kind of have various associations with things and kind of subconsciously push them around. And a perfect example is a lunchbox, because when I wrote on my little notes here, which I'll put on the Instagram, I'll start putting those up on the Instagram if you start following me. I drew a little like American style lunch pail, because I was just like, oh yeah, lunchbox. And then obviously I should have known, it's that like the stainless steel like stacking which makes so much more sense and is just a way more efficient way. We should totally adopt that here. Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the perfect thing. If you say lunchbox to an American kid, then they're gonna imagine like this plastic thing with like superheroes on it. And if you say it in India, they're probably gonna think of like this. I don't know. I don't know why I'm telling you that. It's just interesting, and that's why it's cool to learn different things, and why you shouldn't just assume something, because people have different visual libraries. And you don't, it's good to, if you're going to be telling stories, you want to go as deep as you can. What am I talking about? All this stuff is so good. I love it. Okay, I'm dying. All right. Anyway, the thing I was going to review and I'm going to do tomorrow, I have to not do an Indian cinema thing because I want to do this. There's a show from the 70s and the early 80s in the United States that I started watching. It's all on YouTube. You can watch it anywhere. It's called The White Shadow. And my dad was just mentioning it, and I watched the pilot, and it brought a fucking tear to my eye, which is crazy. Ooh, sorry for swearing. Whoops. Okay, I'm up early because there was a mosquito in my room, and it bit me all over. See? We're all the same. Okay, if I had to give this a grade, oh, boy. Fuck it. I'm doing it. This is so big, guys. This is one of the few A pluses I've ever given on this show. Bam. A plus. You realize how incredibly high that is? I think this might be like one or two of the best romantic comedies I've ever seen in terms of my style, because it's really dark. I loved it. It seems so truthful and beautiful, and I love the open ending. Sometimes open endings feel like just some sort of bullshit cop-out, and this, I loved it. What else? What else has gotten an A plus? I think just the television show Freaks and Geeks that had one season. Yeah. I'm going to stick with that, though. Anyway, like and subscribe if you like to subscribe. I'm here every day. You can be here as much as you want. I got a bunch of Indian cinema loaded up in the chamber. Don't worry. Although tomorrow it will be The White Shadow. But I recommend you check that out, too. You don't just want a sounding board of me saying that you giving me all your classic movies and me being like, yeah, they're awesome. Check out some of these American things and expand your horizons. What the fuck is wrong with me? This is why I only have a few subs. Because I'm a weirdo. Okay, take it easy, guys. Have a beautiful day.